GF used her key to burst into her 23-year-old son's hotel room and found him cuddling his girlfriend. She had a complete meltdown until we found out she forgot her medication. I, 48M, have been dating my girlfriend Kelly, 50F, for nearly 2 years. We are currently on vacation with her son Ryan, 23M, and his girlfriend Emily, 23F, as well as my sister, Bill, niece, and her boyfriend. To preface this, I know Ryan very well. I've known him for nearly a decade now. I was his coach in high school and we grew very, very close. He is practically a son to me. He's also been dating Emily since high school. When we were planning this trip, Kelly said that Ryan wasn't allowed to share a room with Emily. I thought she was joking, but she was not. I know Ryan is sexually active, and I've known by word of his mouth since he was a teenager. I said fine, and the technical plans were that Ryan and my niece's boyfriend would share a room, and my niece and Emily would share a room. Obviously that room arrangement wasn't going to last. Everyone was fine with the technical room arrangement. The girls even had a slumber party one of the first nights. Ryan picked up that this was just to appease Kelly. I handed him his keys and said give the second one to whoever, and he immediately gave it to Emily. My niece did the same in giving her spare key to her boyfriend. This is exactly what everyone thought would happen. Anyway, somehow Ryan had left his wallet in our room last night. Instead of bringing it to him at breakfast or knocking on his door or even shooting him a text, Kelly used the key in it to walk into his room. She saw things she didn't want to see. To be fair, they weren't having sex. What was described to me was that they were both nude, covered up at least on their bottom halves, but they were snuggled up and he was running his fingers on her back. This sounds like how most loving couples are after having sex. She was in hysterics. She refused to come to breakfast. I told her that was fine, but she wasn't going to make this a big deal on our vacation. Emily very sweetly apologized to me and said she knows how Kelly can be, which frankly made me feel terrible. When I went to retrieve Kelly from the room, she was still in a mood. She expressed to me how upset she was, and I told her be thankful all she saw was the snuggling and not the actual act. That made her really upset, and I told her she was overreacting. Ryan is an adult who has been with the same woman for years. She has confided in me before that she doesn't like Emily, but frankly I've never seen her do anything wrong. She's a bit punky and Ryan is a bit more preppy, but she's a sweet person who cares deeply for Ryan and vice versa. She called me every name in the book when I told her she was overreacting. She called him a child and accused me of taking Emily's side over her. I'm genuinely concerned. I've even considered the possibility that she forgot to bring some mood-regulating medication because I have never seen her act like this, and I'm being shunned by her for being an asshole. Currently we're all sitting on the beach while Kelly mopes inside. Update. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who commented. I appreciated the helpful comments and was entertained by the less helpful ones. Even if I didn't reply, I did read every single one. Before I get started, there are a few things I wanted to clear up. I know Kelly is mentally ill, however in the nearly 2 years we've been together I never really noticed anything particularly concerning. Her relationship with Ryan has gotten a lot better both from what I can see and from what Ryan and I have talked about. As for her relationship with Emily, she was never particularly rude to her, but they've also never been close. Kelly is in regular therapy and is medicated for mood regulation. Additionally, I am very, very careful when it comes to enabling behavior for anyone, including Kelly. The reason I took her comment about them staying in separate rooms as a joke is because I genuinely thought it was a joke. That was a ridiculous statement to make. I was sitting at my desk booking the rooms, she had made that comment, I chuckled, and then we started talking about something else. I had no reason to believe that she genuinely felt that way. When she reminded me of her rule in the hotel lobby, I looked at her like she was crazy. She didn't make a scene, and frankly I was exhausted, so I just gave up and handed people the pairs of keycards and told them to do whatever they wanted, and within the hour I was asleep on the beach. I spoke to Ryan before anyone else, apologizing on Kelly's behalf. Since I've known him the longest of the young couple, I figured it'd be easier to talk to him. He was surprisingly understanding of the situation, and apologized back to me for starting this whole thing, which I let him know was a ridiculous thing to apologize for. Before I even had the chance, he himself brought up emotional incest, and said that that was something she was really bad about when he was a teenager and still needed to work on now that he was an adult out of the house. I spoke with Emily and the conversation went similarly. Ryan has always been very strict on his boundaries surrounding how his mother treats Emily, usually leaving her alone for a few days or weeks until she is able to be respectful towards her again. When I asked them both if they knew why Emily was disliked by Kelly, neither of them knew exactly. Emily did suggest that right before Ryan moved out, Kelly had walked in on them actually having sex. Her reaction was even more extreme than this one. They had just graduated high school, meaning Ryan was about 3 months from 19 and Emily was newly 18. This argument caused him to move in with Emily's family, which according to Ryan was extremely tough for Kelly. That event practically thrust her into needing to deal with her attachment issues and trauma, because Ryan told her he would no longer be in contact with her unless she started going to therapy and working on herself. The day of the post, Kelly was able to get an emergency appointment with her therapist. After that, she had calmed down significantly and I was able to actually talk to her. While the whole talk was far too personal for me to go into detail about, I want to talk about a few points. The first thing I asked was what the actual hell was going on. While her unhealthy attachment to her son is at play, she told me the situation was triggering and sent her spiraling, then referenced the circumstances regarding Ryan moving out, which we had never spoken about before. She has a lot of trauma surrounding being a single mother, and certainly has abandonment issues. Ryan's father was a brief, few-week fling who she thought would want to stay with her to raise a baby, and ended up leaving her alone. I decided to ask her why she disliked Emily. At first she said it was because she was loudmouthed and had Ryan by the balls. I told her to rephrase in a more productive was, and she said she was opinionated and Ryan would move mountains for her. While I do adore Emily, she is certainly opinionated, but very intelligent and extremely respectful and polite. Additionally, Ryan hangs off of every word she says. He has told me himself that she's always the most interesting person in the room to him. That's not to say that both of them are perfect. In fact, I saw them bicker about a plate of fruit yesterday, but they are both great together. I told Kelly she should be proud that she raised a son that loves and appreciates his significant other so much that he has openly admitted that he would do anything for her. That lightened up her mood significantly. Funny enough, her therapist suggested she to talk to her primary care doctor or OB/GYN about menopause, which was what another commenter suggested. Her therapist suggested her medication may need to be adjusted if that's the case, as the extreme reaction was frankly out of character, and there have been other mood-related issues she's been dealing with. Initially I was not going to ask about what medication she forgot. As someone who is on antidepressants, whenever I would express rational anger, some toxic people in my life would immediately dismiss it, claiming I haven't taken my meds. I absolutely hate that. With that being said, I decided it was best for me to ask which medication she forgot. To no one's shock, it was indeed a mood-regulating medication. Her sister is joining us for the second week, so she will be bringing her medication. Finally, Ryan and Emily had joined us in a conversation. It was filled with a lot of apologies, a little bit of tears, and a surprising amount of hugging. From what I gather, this is not the first conversation of its kind between the three. One thing that was spoken about was how Kelly ended up with Ryan's wallet in the first place. Ryan is not someone who forgets their wallet, or their keys, or phone, or any other personal item. There was a brief argument about whether or not Kelly took his wallet, but she denied this, and Emily suggested it just fell out of his pocket when he laid on the couch. The biggest topic of conversation was Kelly opening the door with no invitation. She was not able to give a rational reason for doing so, and finally agreed with Emily when she had said that Kelly just wanted to catch them off guard. Ryan also put Kelly in her place as far as boundaries go, which I have seen him to before but am always impressed by, considering I remember when he felt like he had to just let his mom do whatever she wanted so that she was happy. Kelly accepted responsibility and spoke rather openly about her conversation with her therapist, which led to a lot of compassion and understanding from Ryan and Emily. Emily expressed her gratitude for Kelly accepting responsibility, and even suggested they get a drink together. It was generally agreed upon that this entire situation was ridiculous, and that everyone just wanted to enjoy their vacation. Kelly finally gathered herself enough to join us all for our vacation. I feel at ease knowing I can finally, actually relax. Since then our days have been filled with drinks, beach, good food, and naps, and I couldn't be happier. Next story. Husband accused me of baby trapping him and ran away to his parents' house when his friend got baby trapped. But when he found out my baby is a girl, he suddenly wanted to come back. My husband, M35, and I, F32, have been married for 7 years. He lived next door and we just clicked. It was like a fairy tale. One thing I have always thought made our marriage so strong was our friendship with each other and our trust in one another, although now my husband seems to think otherwise. Recently, my husband found out that his friend, Jeff, M34, has been baby trapped. Basically, Jeff's wife, F32, stopped taking the pill and fell pregnant a few months into their relationship, and only came clean after the wedding. Jeff came from a very conservative family, which his wife knew, and so he felt obligated to marry her after the pregnancy. Unfortunately, he also now feels obligated to stay regardless of the clearly messed up dynamic because he feels that he has made a vow and will stick by his wife and child. My husband, for some reason, has been really rattled by this. I am currently 4 months pregnant with our first, and my husband asked me yesterday if I was trying to baby trap him. I first laughed because I honestly thought it was a joke. He was dead serious and doubled down, so I told him that we have already been married for 7 years and a baby was not going to trap him any more than he already is. My husband did not like that answer and said that there was no time limit on baby trapping, and that my intentions were clearly not pure given how I was acting as if his concerns were a joke. He said he had trusted me in the past, but me laughing in his face gave him no reason to trust me now. I did not really know what he wanted or how I was meant to respond, and I said we should talk about this in the morning. Today I woke up and my husband was gone, but I did have a nasty text from his brother, M28, saying that I had forced my husband into this pregnancy, despite it having been a joint decision. My husband is MIA and not responding to calls or texts, and now I'm wondering how on earth to go forward. Any advice is appreciated. Update 1. Hey, everyone. I wanted to quickly update everyone who was kind enough to give me some advice. I didn't respond to anyone because my post was locked quite quickly, but I have read every single comment and message. I am very grateful. I realized while I was reading the comments that everyone was right, I wasn't angry enough. My husband had insulted me and our marriage in a very hurtful way, and it just didn't really register for a while. I was so confused and upset that it didn't occur to me to be angry, but I think everything just needed to sink in. In the meantime, I called my best friend, F31, who has been such a rock in my life. She came over with some chocolate, and was furious when she heard. She called her husband, M34, to the house after I had gotten everything out of my system. He is a family lawyer, and he said that he would happily represent me if I wanted to go through with a divorce. This man is a saint, and will draw up divorce papers on Monday. My Mill, F66, showed up with my husband in the car not long after my best friend's husband arrived, and she practically dragged him to the door. My Mill said that he had showed up at theirs late last night saying that he was certain that I was using the baby to trap him. Fortunately, my Mill is a smart woman and absolutely tore him a new one before dragging him to the house today to apologize. My worm of a husband did not look me in the eye the entire time, but said that he was scared about becoming a dad and projected his fears onto me. He said he wasn't sure if he was ready for that kind of commitment, but he will step up, as if he is some kind of hero. I roll. I called him a coward and told him that he should stay with his parents until I'm ready to talk to him. I didn't want to say anything about the divorce papers because I didn't know what his reaction would be, but he will find out soon enough. I also showed my Mill the text from my Bill, and her face was like a storm cloud. I don't know what will happen there, but I am sure it will be bad. For now, I am exhausted and just want to curl up and cry. My best friend has said she'll spend the night with me and we can watch silly movies. I have also made an appointment with a therapist for next week, but for now, I just need to rest. I am exhausted and devastated that my marriage has come crumbling down. Sorry for the sad ending, everyone. Update 2. Thank you to everyone for all the messages and kind pieces of advice. I have received so many requests for an update, so I thought I would quickly post and let you all know how I am doing. Overall, everything has settled a little bit. In good news, I had a scan with a doctor, my Mill attended with me, and the baby is happy and healthy. I finally found out the gender. I am having a little girl. I am over the moon. My Mill was a gem, and was so touched that I had included her in the scan. She is very excited to be a granny. On that note, my Mill organized a family lunch a couple of days after the scan. I was a little reluctant, but I knew that she had good intentions and wouldn't do anything to make matters worse. When I arrived, my husband and Bill were there, along with my Phil, M70, and Mill. It was quite awkward until my Mill asked if anyone had anything to say. My Bill spoke first and apologized for his awful text, saying that he was swept up in the moment and wanted to support his brother. I explained how hurtful it had been to receive such a nasty and vindictive message, and that he knew as well as anyone that my husband and I had been trying for almost a year. He hung his head and mumbled something. That was pretty much the last I heard out of him for the afternoon. Next, my Mill looked quite pointedly at my husband, but he actively avoided anyone's eyes. Eventually she spoke up and announced that my husband would no longer be welcome to stay in their house. She said that she was ashamed to have her son behave the way that he has, and that she would prefer to make space for her granddaughter rather than have some lowlife hanging around. My husband had opened up his mouth to say something earlier, but his eyes lit up when she said granddaughter. My husband had always wanted a girl and he was suddenly in tears saying that he was so pleased to hear the gender. My husband was suddenly wanting to touch my belly and asked if he could come home and paint the nursery. I told him in no uncertain terms that he was not welcome and that he had destroyed any trust I had in him. I told him that if I took him back, I would be worried that he would disappear at any kind of big news and that I couldn't have someone at my side who balked at the first chance. He asked me if I was telling him it was over, and I point blank told him that I had engaged a lawyer. My husband was kind of frantic, but I felt so calm, like someone had put a blanket over me in the situation. Normally I am a big crier, but I felt so removed from everything. My husband said that this was not fair. He had shown a little bit of panic and suddenly I am throwing away our life and denying him his daughter. My Phil reminded him that this is the same baby he felt trapped by no more than 2 weeks ago. My husband said it was a mistake and he was stressed, but my Mill asked him how he thought I felt. She asked him to imagine being so vulnerable and giving up your body to grow a family, and suddenly the one person you trust is accusing you of terrible things. He said it was a mistake and he projected his fears onto me. I told my husband that I felt so broken when he left because I had all these dreams of a beautiful family which came crashing down in an instant. My husband said that he wanted those things with me and he wanted our baby girl, but that he let the panic overwhelm him. I told him that wasn't a good enough excuse for what he put me through, and that he certainly didn't seem panicked when his mom had to drag him to my door to apologize. He didn't have much of an answer other than to say that he was ready now and wanted our girl. In all of this, in all the times he told me he wanted me and our baby, he never once apologized properly. After a very, very long discussion, the lunch wrapped up and my Mill stood by what she had said about my husband not being welcome. He asked again if he could come home with me, and I told him that it was my house. I owned the house before we married, and it was going to be a safe space for me. That is to say, he is not welcome. As far as I know, he is staying at some hotel. Finally, he was served divorce papers at work on Friday. My bestie's husband drafted them earlier, but I wanted to wait until I had thought it all through. I received a few missed calls and crying voicemails asking if I was really throwing away our family, but I did not respond. He even took a crying selfie sitting in his car, which my bestie laughed at quite a bit. My Mill called me when she heard, and told me that I am making the right decision. She said she never wanted my marriage to end this way or for her son to be so callous, but she said she is here for my baby and I, and that we will always be family. She even tried to apologize on my husband's behalf, but I told her that was not necessary. At the end of the day, his actions are his to own. My best friend has been around all weekend and we went baby clothes shopping for a little bit of sunshine in all of this. She has been such a rock, and her husband has helped so much with the process. I don't know what will happen next, but I feel much calmer and like I am making the right decision. I will update again if anything major or exciting happens, but for now, I just want to get through all of this and hopefully come out with a beautiful baby girl. Wish us luck.